What's up, peeps? In today's video, I want to show you guys how to make your stars pop when you're shooting a night lapse. Originally, I kind of struggled with the idea of making this video because I think there are a lot of people who do already know these tricks. And so I was thinking about not making a video. But after more thought, I realized that this is what this channel is about. Sharing tips, tricks, techniques on how to make better quality video. And so that's why I decided to move forward and make this video. So I'm going to be demonstrating these tips and techniques in Premiere Pro, but you can use these tools in any video editing program. They may look a little bit different, they may have different names, but they're the exact same tools that you'll be able to find in any editing program. So let's get to it. Alright, so in this night lapse, on the left you're seeing my personal color grade, on the right you're seeing just what comes out of Lightroom. Here's another version of it, except for with the stars not crossing the screen and being super distracting. On the top, as it moves down, you're seeing my personal color grade, and on the bottom, of course, what just came out of Lightroom. Let's start with color grade. Color grade is very personal in respect that you're putting your own stylistic touches into something. It's not like color correction where everybody's color correction should look the same, the right white balance, the right tint, so on and so forth. So with my color grade, I'm going to cover it really quick just in case there are people that want to emulate that type of color grade. But then we're going to get into the business of how you make your stars really pop. Alright, so in the Lumetri color panel inside of Premiere Pro, what we're looking at right now is what's on the right, which is what came out of Lightroom directly, and I've made no changes at all to that. On the left, here are the changes I made to that for my personal color grade. You'll notice right off the bat, I made the entire scene much colder, and I give it a little bit of a purple tint. And that's a perfect example of how a color grade is very personal, very stylistic. There's no right or wrong way. But with color correction, like I mentioned before, there is a right way, and I should make a video about it, maybe in the future. Alright, next, let's go to the blacks. With the blacks, I move those down a little bit because I want my black to be really black. I want those crushed. And one of the things that does for us too is it helps remove some of the noise that you would see in the blacks without lowering them and crushing them. And to help with that, I actually took the shadows down 50, as you can see, and that got it to a level that I really liked in terms of my darker portions of this screen. I took up the whites a little bit, and the reason why is the whites literally represent the light that's coming out of your stars. And so you want those to be at least to the maximum up here to 100 on our Lumiscope. And if you don't know what a Lumiscope is, I'll make a video about it in the future. Okay, so I moved up my whites, I moved down my shadows, pumped up my highlights a little bit, and then I pumped up the contrast to 51.9 because I wanted a big difference between my lights and my darks. Okay, so that was my color grading. Use it if you like it, don't use it if you don't. So let's go ahead and get to the trick to making the stars extra crispy bright. So in this image, we don't have a color grade on either side. It's what comes straight out of Lightroom. I did that because I wanted to show you an apples to apples comparison between making the stars pop and having them be like they are when they come out of Lightroom. So this is an extreme example. I have all the sliders turned way up. Obviously, you don't want your stars to look like this, and especially if you're shooting the Milky Way, having the stars pop like that completely takes away from the Milky Way. You practically can't even see it. But the reason I did it like this is I just wanted you to see the capability of the tool itself in terms of how much it can brighten the stars in your images. In Premiere Pro, this tool is called Unsharp Mask, and like I mentioned before, you can find this tool in every video editing program, but it may look different and it may be called a different name, but they all essentially do the same thing. Okay, so let's go ahead and dive into Premiere Pro and take a look at the Unsharp Mask and what it does and how to use it. So here in Premiere Pro, we have our image here, and this is straight out of Lightroom. There's no adjustments that have been made. And we want to find Unsharp Mask, so in my effects panel, I'm going to type in Unsharp, which brings up the Unsharp Mask. Pull that over. Let's go ahead and zoom in 150%. The Unsharp Mask itself is a pretty sophisticated plugin that detects edges within your images. And so, for example, each one of these stars has edges. There's a light part, and then at the edge it goes dark. So when we take the amount here, the amount of sharpening, we're saying, okay, how much do we want to sharpen those edges? And we could slide that up and it will sharpen the edges. Basically what it's doing when it's sharpening those edges is it's increasing the contrast between the light part and the dark part of the edges in the image. That's what sharpening does. And so, like, if I bring that way up, it's increasing the light part and the dark part of the edges all over the place in these stars. So 500, of course, is pretty extreme, and that looks terrible. I'm gonna go ahead and back that down. Let's just do 350. All right, still looks terrible, but slightly better. And you can see the difference when I take it off and put it on. All right. So let's go to the next slider. The next slider is the radius. So like I mentioned with the amount, what it's doing is increasing the brightness and the darkness in the edges in order to make it look more sharp. The radius is saying, okay, how big do we want those edges to be? So as we move it up, it's making larger and larger edges. For example, right now at 25, you can see it's adding lightness next to the darkness in the edges of these trees right here. So we're sharpening our edges, and then we're increasing the radius or the size of those edges with the radius slider. So I'm gonna back this down. Let's keep it pretty big, but we'll put it at 6. So we've increased the sharpness to 350. We've increased the radius of those edges to 6. And our image looks terrible. And that's where the threshold comes in. The threshold is basically the tool that you can use to define specifically what portion of your images this sharpness is being applied to. So right now at 0, it's basically saying, hey, let's apply the sharpness and the radius to every single part of the image, even blank open space. And that's why you're getting all this noise. It's trying to sharpen things that aren't even there, and it's causing an incredible amount of noise. So as you move the threshold closer to 1, it starts looking at more of the already existing edges and less of the obscure nothingness where there are no articulate edges. And so you see the video has improved quite a bit just moving it that small amount. And if we keep on moving it, we'll start getting to something that's a little bit more acceptable. That looks pretty good right there. So let's go ahead and change it to fit. And we have 350 sharpening, radius of 6, and the threshold is right there. There's no number value. So let's remove it and add it back. You can see the huge difference that makes. So that's how you make your stars pop, really stand out. And you have total control. You can make them as bright and flamboyant as you like, or you can make the changes more subtle, which is probably more appropriate if you want your video to look good. In all of my examples in here, I really kind of went overboard to just illustrate the differences. So that's it for today's video. I hope you like it. If you did, you know what to do. And if you want to see more, you also know what to do. And that's it for me. I'm out.